Revit Region Tutorial, Masking Regions. Hello and welcome to part 2 of our Revit Regions tutorial. Today, we'll be talking about masking regions and their practical applications. So, let's get started. You can also find masking regions under the Annotate tab in the Region drop-down menu. If we expand the menu below Filled Region, we'll find Masking Region. If we hover over the Masking Region tool for a moment, we'll see a description explaining that it creates 2D graphics that hide elements in a project or family. In other words, its primary purpose is not to display graphics or hatch patterns, but to mask portions of a drawing that we don't want to be visible. When we activate this tool, the Draw panel opens, giving us the different sketching tools we can use to create the boundary. We also have access to the available line styles, meaning all the line styles currently loaded in our project. In addition, we have the chain, offset, and radius options. Depending on what we need, we can enable or disable each of these options. One thing we immediately notice when comparing a masking region to a filled region is that there are no patterns available here, and we can't choose any existing fill pattern. That's because a masking region isn't intended to display graphics. Instead, it's designed solely to hide the elements behind it. For that reason, a masking region always uses a solid white masking area and doesn't support different pattern types like a filled region does. The line tool is currently selected, so we'll use it to draw our region. This first line will be 300. Then the second line will be 900, followed by another line that's 300. We're intentionally not going to close the boundary, and we'll try to finish the sketch anyway. Revit displays a warning telling us that the boundary lines must form a closed loop. So, just like a filled region, a masking region must also have a closed boundary. Let's fix it now by connecting these two lines and finishing the sketch. Just like with a filled region, once the region has been created, we get grip points that allow us to modify both the shape and the size of the masking region. Notice that the masking region is currently placed above the filled regions we created earlier, which is why it's covering them. However, we can change their display order. With the masking region selected, we can choose whichever option we need. For example, let's click Send to Back. As soon as we do that, the masking region moves behind the existing filled regions. We can also choose Bring Forward, and now the masking region appears in front of one of the regions. If we click Bring Forward again, it'll move in front of the next one, and so on. So, we can adjust the display order in whatever way best suits our project. Just like with the filled region, we can also edit the shape of a masking region after it's been created. With the masking region selected, we'll click Edit Boundary. Once again, all of the same sketching tools become available, just like they were while creating it. This time, we'll modify the shape a little. We'll choose Spline and draw a freeform curve. Something like this. Then we'll delete these two lines. Just like with filled regions, a single masking region can use multiple line styles. For example, we'll change this bottom line to wide lines. We'll set the left line to medium lines, and we'll assign demolish lines to the spline we just created. Actually, we'll change the left line once more and set it to invisible lines. Then finish the sketch. Now we can see the result. This masking region uses 3 different line styles, and this is how they appear together. So, we can combine different line styles however we need to achieve the desired result for our project. Now we'll use Bring to Front and move this masking region slightly to the left. Now let's open the First Floor Proposed tab. We'll zoom in on this bathroom and open this interior elevation. Here, we want to demonstrate how to use a masking region in an interior elevation. We'll go to Annotate, then Region, and choose Masking Region. For the line style, we'll select Wide Lines, then choose Pick Lines. Next, we'll select all of the edges in this bathroom view. This is how we'll create it. We're using wide lines here because we want to hide everything that isn't part of this bathroom view, giving us a cleaner and more readable detail. Now we'll choose the rectangle tool, set the line style to invisible lines, and draw a rectangle like this. We'll finish the sketch, and now we can see that everything behind it has been masked and is no longer visible. We selected invisible lines, yet we can still see some lines here. These aren't the masking region boundary lines. They're visible because Crop Region Visible is currently enabled. Let's fix that. In the Properties palette, under Extents, we'll disable Crop Region Visible, click Apply, and that's it. As you can see, masking regions are often used to clean up views before printing, especially in details, sections, and elevations, where we only want to display the information that actually matters. Now let's turn off thin lines so we can see the final appearance. This is how it will look when printed if we've decided that the edges of our bathroom should be displayed using thicker lines. We'll turn thin lines back on. Now let's look at another practical use for a masking region. First, we'll open Sheet 901, Details. Here we can see the typical wall section that we already looked at in the previous video about filled regions. We'll activate this view either by double-clicking it or by right-clicking and choosing Open or Activate View, depending on whether you want to stay on the sheet or open the view in a separate window. As we mentioned in the previous video, all of these are filled regions, and we also have text in this view. Now let's draw a masking region over this area. At first glance, we might expect the masking region to hide both the text and the filled regions. Let's see what actually happens. We'll set the line style to invisible lines and draw the region like this. We'll finish the sketch and look at the result. The masking region covers all of the filled regions. However, notice that it doesn't hide the text. A regular masking region can hide filled regions and other elements, but it cannot cover text within the view. We can still change the draw order, moving the masking region forward or backward. However, what we've learned here is that a regular masking region cannot hide existing text within a view. So, if we need to mask the text as well, we'll need a different approach. That's why we'll create a dedicated family containing a masking region. We'll go to File, New, Family. Under Annotations, we'll choose Metric Generic Annotation. If you're using the Imperial version of Revit, you'll choose Imperial Generic Annotation instead. Since we're using the metric version in this tutorial, we'll go back to Annotations, select Metric Generic Annotation, and click Open. This window opens, and we can see a message telling us that we need to change the family category to use the appropriate annotation type. We'll simply delete this message. Now we'll go to the Create tab, where we can find Masking Region. Under Line Style, we have Subcategory, Generic Annotation, and Invisible Lines. We'll choose Invisible Lines, select the Rectangle tool, and draw a rectangle approximately like this. Let's make it 140 by 150, then finish the sketch. If we select the masking region, we can see in the Properties palette that we have the option to control whether it's visible by enabling or disabling this checkbox. Of course, we want it to remain visible, so we'll leave it checked. Now we'll go to File, then Save As, then Family, name it Masking Region Family, and click Save. After that, we'll choose Load into Project and click OK. Now we can see that the Masking Region family has been loaded into our project. However, we're currently on the sheet, not inside an active view, so let's activate the view first. Then we'll insert the family we just created. You'll find it under Annotate, Symbol. When we click Symbol, we can see the family we just loaded. If your project already contains other annotation families, you'll be able to choose between them. In this case, we'll select Masking Region Family. Once we place it like this, you can see that it masks the text as well as the filled regions. If we move it around, you'll notice that everywhere we place this Masking Region family, both the text and the filled regions are hidden. Of course, this was just an example size. If you need a specific size, simply create the family using the exact dimensions required for your project. Now let's look at another situation. Suppose we want to hide part of one of the views placed on a sheet, for example, some text or any other element, but only on the sheet itself, not inside the view. You might expect that the same family would work directly on the sheet as well. However, let's see what actually happens. We can't simply place the Masking Region family we created over the view, because if we do, you'll notice that everything remains visible through it. The viewport content is still visible, and it doesn't hide anything, not even the filled regions. Why is that? It's because this annotation family is placed on top of the viewport, rather than inside the view itself. As a result, it can't mask the viewport's contents. Now, let's make it work. We'll do that by creating a drafting view. We'll go to View, choose Drafting View, and name it Masking Region. We'll click OK and keep the existing scale. Next, we'll go to Annotate. Choose Symbol. Select the masking region family we created earlier and place it like this. Now that we've created the drafting view, let's go back to our sheet. In the project browser, we'll search for our drafting view by typing masking region. Here it is. We'll drag it onto the sheet and place it here. Now you can see that we've successfully placed the masking region over the view by using the drafting view we created. The only thing we don't need in this case is the view title, so we'll change the viewport type to Viewport 2, which we've previously configured without a title. And that's it. We've successfully hidden the part of the view that we didn't want to display on the sheet. So if you ever need to hide only a specific portion of a view and only on the sheet, you can use this method. And finally, we will show one more very important application of masking regions, which is using them inside families. This is where we can find some options that many users often overlook, but they can be very useful when creating high-quality Revit families. Now we will open this tab here, which is the family editor for this chair. We will open the reference planes of this family and zoom in a little, because this is where we will draw the mask for this family. Currently, we have the hidden line graphic display option enabled. One important thing to mention is that we can also create a mask in elevations. When we view our family from that specific direction, we will see the mask that we created in that view, meaning the part that we covered and do not want to be visible. Now let's go to Annotate. We will select Masking Region. We can choose pick lines and create the exact shape of this chair, but we can also create any shape that we want to represent our chair. In this example, we will do the second option. We will select a circle and draw it like this. Now, if we pay attention to the properties, we can see that the checkbox next to Draw in Foreground is currently enabled. When we hold the mouse over it for a moment, we can see its description. This option determines whether the masking region will always be placed in front of the family geometry or whether it will use the work plane on which it was drawn. In other words, the geometry closest to the projection plane of the view will be masked regardless of the plane where the region is drawn. Clear to mask based on the position of the region. For now, we will leave this option enabled and accept this shape. We can see that our masking region has completely covered our chair. Now let's see what happens next. While the masking region is still active, we will go to the properties and disable Draw in Foreground and observe what happens. Now our masking region is not hiding anything at all. Why is this happening? This happens because if we are not drawing in the foreground, then our reference plane is actually our work plane. This means that the masking region is no longer in front of the geometry, but instead uses its work plane. Let's open the front elevation to see our work plane, meaning the reference plane. So, the reference plane is located below the chair geometry, and, because of that, it does not cover anything. If we want our work plane to be some other custom plane, we can create a new reference plane and use it as the work plane for the masking region. Let's go to Create, then Reference Plane, and place this plane here. We will name it Height. Now we will go back to the reference level. Click on the masking region, and then select Edit Work Plane. When this window opens, we will select the plane that we created earlier. Click OK, and let's see what happens. We can see that the position of the masking region now depends on the new reference plane that we selected as the work plane. The masking region now follows the new reference plane that we selected as its work plane. That is why we can see only the geometry that is located above this plane. Let's see what happens when we move it. We will move it upward. In the reference plane view, we can see only the part that remains above the plane. If we move it completely above the chair, we will not see any part of the chair because everything is below it, meaning the mask has hidden everything. No matter where we move this reference plane, the masking region will follow it. The mask is actually attached to the work plane. As we move the reference plane, the masking region moves together with it. So, Sometimes we will have a situation where we do not want to hide the entire family, but only one part of it. In that case, we can do it this way. While the masking region is selected, we will click on Edit Boundary. Here we can change the line type used to draw our region, just like with a regular masking region. Let's select Invisible and see how it looks. As we can see, if we want, the masking region lines can be invisible, and only the outline of our family will be visible. We can also draw symbolic lines if needed. In this case, we will return to the previous line type because we want the masking region lines to remain visible. Now that we have everything prepared, let's load this family into our project. We will place it, for example, here. We can see that even though we selected that our masking region is not in the foreground, but instead is placed on our height plane, we currently cannot see the part of the chair that we wanted to see. Why is that? The reason is not the masking region itself, but the visibility settings of the family geometry. Let's go back to the family editor. We will go to the reference plane and select this part of the chair. In the Properties window, we can see that the Visible option is enabled. Now, let's see what happens in the Visibility Graphics settings. Click Edit and a new window opens. We can see that this element is visible in the 3D view, as well as in front/back and left/right views, but it is not visible in plan/RCP views. We can also see the detail levels in which it is visible. The masking region is working correctly, but the geometry itself is not enabled to be displayed in the plan view. We will enable this part of the family to be visible in all detail levels, but most importantly, in the plan view. Click OK, and load the family into the project again. We will choose Override. Now it looks the way we intended. We can see the part of the chair that we wanted to display. Depending on what we need, we can enable or disable the settings that are required. For now, we will leave this chair like this. Now let's move on to the next family, this table here. Again, we will open the reference plane. Let's draw a masking region for this table. Go to Annotate, then select Masking Region. Again, we will not draw the exact shape of the table. Instead, we will choose a rectangle and draw it like this. To make it look cleaner, we will make it equal. Like this. We can see that we are not drawing in the foreground, meaning we are drawing on the work plane, which in this case is the reference level. We will accept this shape. Since we drew it on the reference level, we know that our mask is located below the table itself. Let's check the visibility settings of this table. We will select the top surface of the table and click on Visibility/Graphics Overrides. We can see that it is already set so that the top surface of the table is not visible in the plan view. We have already seen that if we use a mask on the reference level and disable the visibility of the family, only the mask will be displayed. If we enable Draw in Foreground, the masking region is no longer attached to its work plane. Instead, Revit automatically places it in front of the family geometry, meaning on the part of the geometry that is closest to the viewer in the current view. We will disable Draw in Foreground again so that we can compare the result. Now that we have everything set the way we want, let's load the family into the project. We will place it here. We can see that only the mask is visible because we disabled the visibility of the family in both the plan and reflected ceiling plan views. Let's go back to the family editor. We can see that our work plane is actually the reference plane. When we open the front elevation, we can see that this plane is located below the table. Again, if we want to display the entire table or only part of it, just like we did with the chair, we can adjust this. Now we will enable the top surface of the table to be visible in the plan view. Click OK. Now we will load the family into the project again. Choose Override. We can see how it looks when the family geometry is visible. Since this is not what we want in this case, we will click Undo. We will also do the same in the family editor and use Undo. As we can see, it will no longer be visible in the plan view. Great. Let's return to the main view of our project. Actually, first we will open the 3D view to see how our families look. First, let's set the detail level to fine so that we can see the entire chair, because we have not changed the graphic visibility settings for all elements. Now, let's click on the right view. What we can notice here is that the highest edge of the table is higher than the highest edge of the chair. This is important for what we are going to show next. Let's return to the plan view of our project. We will select the chair that we previously loaded and move it so that it overlaps the table to see what happens. We can see that the chair is displayed above the table, even though we already saw that the chair is slightly lower than the table. Why is this happening? It is happening because of the work plane on which we drew the mask. Let's go back to the chair family editor. So, for the chair, we left the work plane for the mask as the height plane that we created. We can see that this plane is 440 higher than the reference plane located at the family's 0 level, which is the default position. Now, if we go to the table, we can see that its work plane is actually the reference plane located at the family's 0 level, which is the default one. So, the work plane of the table is at level 0, while the work plane of the chair is higher. Because of this, the masking region of the chair is positioned at a higher elevation than the masking region of the table. Therefore, we can conclude that when masking regions are drawn on their work planes inside families, and those families overlap, the family whose work plane is higher will appear above the other one. Now, let's go back to the chair, to the reference level. We will select the masking region and enable Draw in Foreground. With this option enabled, the masking region will no longer use the position of the work plane. Instead, it will be displayed in front of the family geometry. It will be placed at the highest point of the family. Now we will load this family back into the project and choose Override. We can see that the chair is still above the table, but now it is no longer related to the height work plane. Instead, the masking region is displayed in front of the geometry because of the Draw in Foreground option. Now we will do the same thing for the table. Let's go to the table's reference level. We will select the masking region and enable Draw in Foreground. So, for the table as well, the masking region will now be displayed in front of the family geometry because of the Draw in Foreground option. Let's load the table back into the project. Again, we choose Override. Let's see what happens now. The table is now above the chair, just as it is in reality. So, in the case of the table, the highest reference plane is here, while for the chair it is here. Since the masking region of both families is drawn in the foreground, the one with the higher reference plane will appear above the other. Let's check if this rule really applies in other cases as well. We will do this with this chair. This is a bar stool, and it is higher than both the table and the chair that we already placed in the project. Therefore, the highest point of this family is higher than the two previous families. Now we will repeat the same process. Let's draw a masking region. We will draw it like this. Of course, we will keep Draw in Foreground enabled, meaning that the masking region will be placed at the highest point. We will accept this shape. We will set the view to hidden line and adjust the detail level. Now let's load this family into the project. We will place the new chair here. Let's see what happens. The masking region of this chair is above the masking region of the table because the geometry of this chair is higher than the table. We can see that in this case, the masking region of the family with the higher geometry appears above because all families are using the Draw in Foreground option. So, with masking regions inside families, there are two ways to determine their position. The first is by using the Draw in Foreground option, where the masking region will always be displayed in front of the family geometry. The second is by using its own work plane or reference plane, which allows us to control the exact elevation at which the masking region will be placed. This way, we can choose the approach that best fits the requirements of our project. And that's it for this video. Throughout this series, we have taken an in-depth look at both filled regions and masking regions, shown their differences, explained how they work, and demonstrated practical applications in both projects and families. Once you understand how these tools work, you will have much better control over the appearance of your details, views, and annotation families in Revit. Thank you for watching. We hope this tutorial helps you improve your Revit workflow. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tutorials.